Good afternoon, B3L. It's Rotes DB coming to you with a Discord session. A bit quiet in the Discord right now. That is fine. We'll carry on. I wanted to kind of get this video out at the very least, talking about what is going on in the market and how it impacts what's going on across NFTs, crypto, and meme coins, and what the kind of general scenario is that we're in here after what has been a pretty wild Monday, wild weekend, led by BTC and some of the fallout from there. So BTC finally broke above 69K on a daily candle close on Sunday. Proceeded to drop a bit, but then it's rallied really strongly here Monday, reaching highs of about 72.75, I think roughly around there, maybe a bit more. It's hard to let's see what's the 72.8. So it's rallied 4 or 5% here today on Monday, and then ETH has trailed along with it, kind of the closest follow, and then Sol lagging a little bit behind on the majors. Um, and so ETH is now broken above 4K. Both really important narratives when we talk about what's going on in the NFT market, etc. Of course, ETH is not above all-time highs at this point. I think that makes it appear as a value. Of course, there is the ETH narrative, which is tempered down probability-wise, a little less expected to happen, which will be an interesting kind of fallout or cascade on whether or not uh, if it doesn't get approved, what happens with ETH in the broader market at that point in time. But still, really good strength in ETH, BTC across the board. And so that wave is kind of leading the way. And then as that leads the way, we see some activity and success in some of the meme coins there. Pepe up about 15%, Doge up a few, Say up a bit, not a meme, but still up a bit, and across the board. So where does that mean in the terms of what we have for NFTs? Well, NFTs are repricing as they've consistently done when there is a rally outside of the pure mania bulls that we've experienced in ETH back in 2021 and Ordinals last weekend. So across the board, we're down in the range of anywhere between 5 and 15% on the daily. Um, Really, I think that even that 15%, where is that at? That's potatoes. So, I mean, primary collection. And then on the 7 day, we're down in the range of 15 to 30, 40%. Now, this is a lot of it is a repricing in USD terms, which I think is just it's a it's a predominant narrative. We look at NFTs and say, oh, NFTs are down, 50, 60% to what they were just a month ago. Well, yeah, that's a very bear sentiment, but we cannot forget the rally of what's occurred here in crypto. Now, of course, you say, okay, well, what if I was just holding crypto? I would be up possibly 2x, over that time frame. Well, that's correct, but you're not necessarily holding the crypto asset, you're holding the NFT on top of that. So NFTs are this interesting cross form of whether or not they are a leverage bet on the crypto asset, or if you're placing it directly on NFTs themselves. So I think it's a combination of both. When things start to range, then you see that leverage amount kind of push into NFTs and things move up. And I think after we get through this crypto run, uh, we would start to expect to see some of these NFT collections kind of rebound as they look like values in the terms of ETH prices here in the near future. That's what I'd expect after we get through this really powerful positive cycle. So that's kind of where it's at for them. Ordinals, of course, have also repriced pretty significantly. Really, such a strong rally last weekend that it's natural to reprice a big upswing in that. You could expect anywhere from a 50 to 60% pullback before maybe some accumulation or a move onward upward. I think that mania from ordinals has died down, and so it's probably going to take a bit of time before it cycles back that way. Right now, I think the general narrative is crypto majors, and then still with meme coins, and NFTs are mostly backseat at the moment, as everything is really focused on all-time highs, etc., and where could things go. So that's what the general aspect is. But as I said last week, is beware of chasing, because you could be left holding the wrong bag at the wrong time. And overall things are pretty level USD term wise. So that is kind of that. Welcome Danksy and Mapao. Just kind of going through an update here before I dig into specific collections and look at some TA. With these sessions, I will kind of carry forward whether or not there are people here or not, and then post a video later. It just seems, depending on what's going on a particular day, we'll get a whole bunch of people, or it'll be pretty quiet. But that's fine by me. Yeah, and then so if we look at oh, kind of my barometer here, volumes across the board on Ether are pretty level. Magic Eden, still low, all things considered, but pretty strong here so far today. So continue to, I would assume, continue to gain traction as things like maybe some of the blur farming slows down. A lot of chaos and a bit of panic exists, I think, in the uh, Bored Ape ecosystem there, with some loans and some cascading effects. There's going to be a bottom here that hits, and it's going to be a really positive buy. I would believe in the near future, but it's once that slows down. So we'll watch that. Of course, Yuga and that ecosystem kind of pulls the rest of the market with it as well. Buyer to seller ratio has trended downward over the last little while. Just a general profit taking, or a general USD kind of sell off moving into crypto. Buyer seller activity has also been on a bit of a decline. Strong here over the last couple of days, however, so that's good to see. And in fact, we saw a positive buyer to seller ratio on Saturday, which was really the Matt Fury frenzy that kind of occurred there, with the what was it, dupla Pepin kind of scenario. I've seen a lot of activity there on ninja alerts from smart buyers, etc. I didn't quite understand the collection overall, and of course, once it played out and reveal played out, it was a really strong surge, but then tailed off there. And I mean, it was hard because there's been several collections now by Matt Fury, and none of them have necessarily performed well as of late. But it's that Pepe narrative that I think ran strong, and some I think some pretty interesting, unique art at the top that caught some people's attention. You can see here a bit of Magic Eden showing up into this chart here, activity by platform. Good to see in terms of daily buyers. Volume still pretty low, but increasing.
Hey, Roots, are you streaming?
I
I don't.
I am. Am I going through this and not even sharing my screen? I am totally doing that. Am I not? My bad. Thank you, King, for letting me know. That is up. So, not helpful. It will be on the recording, the video recording, but it's up here now. Really, just kind of was looking at Trading View and then into this here. So, thanks for letting me know. And if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to toss them into Club VC chat, or just join in on voice, and I can talk about it. Yeah, it totally Opao is that it is this kind of like waiting for the bottom and where that's gonna be, and I think that's been like that for a lot of ETH collections in general, where there's this consistent fall, which I mean to a degree mirrors what we've seen on the ETH run, right? Which has been a really strong up run over the last month, not about a week after, 10 days after the BTC ETF approval, and it's just this strong run, and it's been almost the opposite what we see on ETH. And then once we look at indexes here, which is really next, you can see that we're holding flat really over the last uh, week, 10 days or so, in terms of USD value over the last 6 months. And we're still up in terms of ETH value. Of course, that's taking all collections across the board. So some are up, some are down. But overall, the market has held pretty stable in ETH NFT terms, regardless of what the sentiment may be at the moment. And I think, I mentioned earlier is that there's this paradigm of, uh, you know, leveraging your bet with NFTs versus the crypto based asset really only is at play when uh, that base asset, Ether, Bitcoin, or whatever, or Solana, or whatever have you, is that when they're in a more stable environment, then you're leveraging that bet or placing your bet on NFTs and people moving in there. Otherwise, when there's like quite a large run on the crypto asset, unless there's a bit of a bull run on the NFTs at the same time, which we've seen periodically, it's going to kind of reprice, generally speaking. So blue chips up, uh, still about 269% over the last 6 months to where it was prior, and then up about 7% in the terms of ETH overall. So still holding well, but you can see here where things exist over the last kind of ranges. So VeeFriends, the only one that's up over the last 7 days. They announced kind of a next uh, cycle here, or next um, partnership, and another thing coming along the lines. I didn't look at it too much. I just saw it across the timeline. Of course, they're up with that. Been a bit of buzz around VeeFriends here lately, as Gary seems to be getting a little bit more active. Pudgy's down 6%. Now, these are as of, actually, this should be as of current. And so that's good. CloneX leading the way on the down. Mutants, Coda, Apes down 19% in terms of ETH. And then over the last 30 days, Apes down 34, Coda down 52, CloneX 46. So other side 44. So some pretty large down swings. The only ones that are up right now is Captains and Creeps, all really due to a repricing in USD versus ETH with those. Mid-cap index has performed better than blue chip, up almost 300% over the last 6 months, and then up about 18% in terms of ETH. So some strong stories there that have occurred over the last 6 months for a lot of these collections. I think mid cap as well kind of took off a little bit after the blue chips, and then some of these collections. I mean, you could almost argue some of them could be in the aspect of being blue chip, or vice versa. Checks with their surged here recently with their V2 announcement. Not fully aware of how that all plays out, but I think it's kind of a way to hypercycle the rollout and reveal of checks as they're kind of moving along pretty slowly to the kind of overall cycle of how many more have to reveal. Got a cat gang up on the last week. Valhalla, checks again, and Gremlins. So there are some winners on mid cap. Over the last 30 days, there's just a few. Sappy Seals with their kind of new metaverse environment that they released and revealed. Kenpai Pandas, Wreck Guy, Redacted Remilio, Sproto Gremlins are the winners over the last 30. Again, though, everything is up in terms of USD value, which is still positive to see. So it's tough to see that constant kind of red cycle on the E terms, but a repricing and then some bearish sentiment across some collections, mainly being Yuga, as they kind of get the most attention, I think, on the timeline, even though they're not necessarily always the biggest gainer or loser, right? So they're the noisiest community, which is which is excellent. So I'm gonna pause there, wait for any questions. Welcome everyone that's joined. Again, video will be up there after this. So if you missed the beginning, you can catch it from there. But really, just looking at how this real large crypto run kind of impacts NFTs and then where things look from there. So, if you have any questions, thoughts, any collections you want to look at, etc., kind of post, let me know, and we can dig in. If not, I will dig in myself. I I honestly thought that it was quite possible that we were going to see kind of a bounce off of the 69K and then range down here on Bitcoin. But it's, we're overbought, etc. But it's this, two things kind of really happened. There was the Michael Saylor large buy here again, and then there's that weekly inflows of ETF money that really pushes things onward for Bitcoin. But I could have easily had seen it sell off a bit here and retest. So we're not in the all clear, and when it comes to all time highs, but it's gonna be fun to see how things run on the Bitcoin side of things. Dig into Parsec, look at things from here. So Parsec, there was a couple collections that I was looking at as a barometer for the overall NFT ecosystem. It was interesting because when I was looking at kind of some of the TA on there, a lot of it wasn't necessarily considering the fact of a strong crypto rally as being kind of what drove prices down. Because as we looked at it, we're like, okay, we're looking for at that time Azuki to break above this long term trend and move upward. They kind of got caught in the middle here a bit, and then have really dipped down, and are nearing kind of some all time lows. Um, well, not all time lows, but really post mint lows and lows from the elemental reveal. But they still have some range here to go. There's a bit of support across this 3.75 ETH range. So looking for a hopeful bounce off of that, and then we can kind of move upwards. So uh, there is pause of some safety in Azuki there, but to be determined. I think apes are another one to look and watch here. I like to look at the daily, but some of these might be advantageous to look at on a weekly basis here as well. So apes really, and in fact, I'm going to have to look at this one on a weekly, just so we can get a long enough time horizon back to where they previously were. So levels not seen since August, really when they took off. So there is some support here in this 14.75 if you look way back. Um, so is it possible that that becomes the whole point? Hard to say. There's still a lot going on with the loan status with a lot of these NFTs, and I think if that continues, we could see closer to 10 as a possible floor. But we'll have to wait and see. So a little bit of nervousness around where that exists for apes, but this 14.75 I think is a possible hold. If you're looking way back, but all time lows here really in the latest since really the early days. So um, definitely makes I think holders nervous, but when you look at it in USD terms, it's a little less bearish. It's still 60K, but down from where it was more recently in the 70K plus range. So apes, like I said, I think they're the biggest barometer for what's on the timeline. Punks are probably the best barometer for what the NFT ecosystem is doing in general. Uh, Punks are still above recent levels here, which is really good. And, you know, reasonable support in this 45 ETH range, currently sitting at about 49.50, and there's actually some support in this 50 range as well. So, if they hold here, there's kind of some support levels across Azuki, Apes, Punks, like we kind of see across the board. So, um, it's a kind of a really pivotal moment for NFTs this week. And if things bounce across the ecosystems right here, uh, could be quite positive. But we really have to watch to see what ETH is doing. If we could get some range here, be great for NFTs. But if Bitcoin's going to run, then we're not going to get the range. ETH is going to move up, and we'll see from there. I think if we look at most every project, they're going to be in some pivotal ranges here. Uh, and I agree with your comment there, Improv. Let's look at Pudgy's. Now this is on a weekly chart, so it doesn't necessarily tell us a ton. Go back to the daily. So Pudgy's are uh, kind of in the middle of any sort of range here. I think the next range is 12 for possible support. Um, in a bit of a downtrend here as well. Maybe this 13 range is a bit of a short term bounce, but I mean it's in this downtrend. So there's nothing here until 10.5 for Pudgy's. Maybe I guess you could look at 12 further back. Um, so they're kind of separate from the first three collections, trading a bit different. Of course, one of the fewer collections that really had seen that success and rally prior to everything going on. So I'm sure they're trading a bit different that way. Um, so we'll watch there. Interesting longer term trend line here on captains. So could look at a bit of a support bounce here at where they're currently sitting in this 4.4 ETH range. There is a possible longer term support down at the 4.3 range. Um, but again, a pretty sharp downtrend. Of course, we're going to see that across all collections, but it's where collections start to hold and bounce. But as we've experienced, it's really driven by crypto and the NFTs. But I think it's still really important to kind of check your positions based on where everything is sitting USD terms. Things are holding really well, and though the typical story is we're trying to stack crypto. I think buying NFTs is uh, a conviction play based on what the team is doing, It's a community play. It's a a bit of a status play, etc. across the board. And if USD terms are holding up, then it's still along those lines, right? So once things kind of normalize and settle on the crypto side, then it should trail into NFTs from there. Sappy's on the most recent positive move. It looks like kind of almost a full retracement based off of the announcement news, which is pretty wild. I mean, from what I've seen in the sneaks and what's gone on with Sappies and what they're doing, it's a pretty impressive a bit of rollout, and I don't think really ultimately expected outside of maybe inside the community. So, um, yeah, they haven't uh, moved significantly from that. One that's been a little harder to watch is D Gods and Utes. So a lot of the what was holding them up was the wormhole token release. That didn't necessarily go great, given the fact that anyone that was eligible had to get into the wormhole Discord at a certain time, etc. And I think that created a bit of a spiral. And then once the wormhole tokens were dropped, there was this large sell off, which is like super significant when we look at where I mean they're hitting all time lows back at least in the terms of ETH uh, for them, and being at this 1.5 range, it's crazy. It's crazy to see. Um, Oversold, but I don't think Utes and D gods are something that can be touched at the moment. I'm not sure that there is a strong form of building and development as a sustainable way for what's going on for that ecosystem and by Frank and team. So until that's there, it's hard. You're collecting art in general, and right now, there's a bit of a sour taste on that. So it's not fun to see, um, you know, that for them. As at one time, especially in the Solana days, they were uh, a collection that was really pushing well. So Milady's chart looked really interesting over the last uh, couple sessions, and so really strong breakout on Milady's. One of their narratives that plays pretty well is that they've always been kind of in tune with what's going on in the meme coin space, and I think that helps drive some of their success. So a pretty good rally out of ladies, a bit of a pullback here. Um, Looking at that pullback, it's in a bit of a awkward spot at the moment. Um, but when we look at the kind of a bit of a bull flag there, it's possible a continuation upward from there. Gonna pause. Any other collections that anyone's looking at, wants to talk about, etc., or anything else in that respect? Thanks everyone for showing up as well. Much appreciated. We do, Wapow, talk about them to a degree. It's the general um, activity around a lot of the premium generative art types, etc. Art blocks has been quieter as of late. So there hasn't been necessarily a lot to cover. There's been some discussion on the our projects that exist on ordinals, um, but in general, quiet in terms of uh, things, all things generative art. I think generative art is probably, if we look at it, outside of maybe punks, one of the most secure NFT aspects to place your bets on, right? So as crypto runs and as you know wealth is accumulated, that wealth will inevitably cycle into uh, high end art NFTs as they have in the past, and I think those specific grails will hold and perform well. Not a lot of liquidity there, and obviously price wise, etc., hard to obtain. Squiggles right now in USD terms are actually at an all time high, or we're really near that all time high mark. So they're still performing really well in USD terms. And there's been some positive success, and even like some of those larger buys that have occurred in uh, Fidenzas. There was the buy of 10 autoglyphs in one buy, and that was it. The 10 autoglyphs that a went to a regular Web 2 or a traditional art collector, to my understanding. And so there's still um, a lot of success going on in the gen art side of things. It's just not kind of in that crypto Twitter narrative, which is interesting. I think it's as what Powell brings it up. It's important to be aware of drops that are coming up and what collections are kind of the grails across the board. But as it stands, NFTs and NFT art and collectability is one thing that I think stands beyond anything else that goes on uh, in the space. Lady Slipper has typed a lot, but hasn't got that out yet, and I'm waiting. Okay, love to hear your thought on Magic Eden, how you see the platform and how it affects NFTs now and moving forward. If that's something you cover here, I know all speculative at the moment. Um, yeah, I mean, Magic Eden has been super interesting. I think the Magic Eden ETH launch, etc., was expected to be larger, more successful. I think in terms of uh, where it was at launch. It hasn't been the case in terms of overall volume and sales. We did look at it a little bit here on the Dune dashboard and went through some of the activity. So it's making up, um, in some of its larger days here, 15% daily buyer volumes, 4%, as low as 2%. So it's making up such a small share at the moment in terms of ETH activity, but there are aspects of it that are very positive for NFT collections and creators and founders that I think have made it a preferred platform for communities to move over, such as B3L, and and they are rewarding royalties. And I think as collections are able to enforce royalties because of being in uh, Magic Eden in general, those are all positives for the space. However, Blur dominates. Blur dominates because of farming. Blur also dominates because that's where we see uh, listings exist. Um, some things that have helped kind of bridge that gap for listings existing, etc., is when these platforms are able to curate uh, all platforms listings, and then you can buy across. So OpenSea Pro does that. Blur does that fairly well, and Magic Eden also does that. right? So if we were to go and look at, let's just go over to ETH and the volume on here. Right, so you can tell which ones are on Magic Eden from the diamonds that exist there. Most aren't. Don't know if it tells me. Doesn't tell you exactly where those are listed, but you can still see and be able to buy on Magic Eden directly, which is positive for adoption. I do like Magic Eden as a platform. I think it's really quite effective. Um, and they have some better charting available, which isn't something that exists um, on a lot of other platforms, right? The Blur platform itself doesn't provide excellent ability for charting, whereas this is, I think, much better. So overall, there are some positives for using Magic Eden in general. But what I think is the most important part and most important aspect is the rewards. We don't know what those rewards are going to be worth and how much everyone's going to receive, etc. But it's a lot like the farming that existed on Blur, and Blur season one I think was one of the more lucrative drops in general. At least it was surprising to what the amount of drop was. Season two was a lot harder, and a lot of the rewards went to those that were providing the most liquidity, bidding, etc. But as Blur kind of still exists, it's tough for traction to be gained across platforms. OpenSea, why OpenSea is still getting any kind of attention or activity is somewhat beyond me at this point. There's no unique value that OpenSea provides, so you would want to expect Magic Eden to overtake OpenSea, but again, it's kind of where listings exist. Even though Magic Eden is going to show the listings on that occur on OpenSea on their platform as well. So it's just a matter of comfort and where things are at. It might take something like people seeing what that first airdrop looks like from using Magic Eden before people realize what's possible to be earned over there. But if you're not farming anything on Blur in general, I'd be using Magic Eden. Whether or not you buy an item that's listed on Magic Eden or not depends, right? Price is price, but I'd be using Magic Eden in general. I think it's overall a lot of ways a better platform once you get into the collection side of things and get used to it. Um, some parts of it, aspects of it, aren't quite as maybe as enjoyable as Blur is if you got used to it. But yeah, it's token drop, etc. That's got to take over. Magic Eden is currently the number one platform on a regular basis for overall NFT volume because of uh, ordinals in general. One BTC activity has been really strong. It's got captures almost all of that market. Solana, uh, Magic Eden's in about a 50-50 battle, and then ETH is much lower. But ETH is such a small portion of what Magic Eden is doing in general. But the ecosystem is otherwise really strong. So I don't know if that answered your question. I I want to see more out of Magic Eden in terms of activity on ETH perform there. I think it's the right solution. Um, but Blur farming, the ease of selling off to Blur, etc. I think that still remains strong until something like a Magic Eden reward drop kind of takes hold and people realize that hey, it's something of real value. Awesome. I hope you were able to get in on. I know we talked about puppets several weeks ago or about a month ago. Hopefully, you got in there and were able to play that, and then took profits or still holding. I think overall the ordinal ecosystem is still fairly early days. You know, still going to see some collections come out in that respect. Um, so still watching over there at the very least. Even though this pullback exists, I think there's probably some value in some of the top collections at the moment. But it's hard to, as things continue to pull back, it's really hard to to hold that conviction that maybe existed just a week earlier from the mania. But we'll be curious to see how things run on ordinals. Be nice though to see a cycle into to ETH NFTs here shortly because I think we all want it and need it too there as well. Actually, take a look at mutants. So now, when it comes to looking at NFT collections, and specifically technical analysis on NFT collections, there's a bit of uh, a mixed opinion base on it, right? So I think it still holds true, and you can kind of see the scenarios where really the technical analysis does hold true, right? It it's a bit of a psychological driven aspect to it, but also kind of a TA kind of leads to the trading behavior in general. But on the collections that have at least sufficient volume, I think overall the TA is a excellent way to understand where you're at within a collection, right? So it may not be the ultimate guide to what's going to happen, but like if you're to go in there and say, okay, we're looking at a collection such as mutants, and all we're seeing right now is this downtrend, uh, and we're seeing, I think, all-time lows on mutants because they minted out at 3. Um, you know, now isn't necessarily the time you look to buy. You know, even though we're oversold, even though aspects of it say, hey, it's cheaper than it's ever been. It's a value at the moment. What you want to see is some form of accumulation or a move that breaks the downward trend. And there's actually two parts of that. There's this earlier trend here, and then there's this sharp kind of move downward from the ETH surge upward. And it'd be nice actually if some of these charts would reprice to USD or if that's possible. I'll have to look into to see if that's possible to normalize these charts on a USD perspective and whether or not that changes aspects. Although everything's priced, bought, and sold in terms of ETH, and so therefore, looking at it in USD doesn't necessarily help when it comes to TA. But looking and then being able to see that and say, okay, hey, now's not the time to buy, right? Wait it out, look at where we're at, and make that move. For instance, one of my more recent buys was Doodles. Believe in a lot of what is going on there and anticipating what they have coming, at least what has been whispered about. Um, so I made a bet on Doodles, and when I was looking at the charting on Doodles, if we can take it back to where it was, I think it was right here, right? So we have this downtrend. We're looking at this downtrend, and as we see that downtrend, we're like, okay, we're looking for a break up. Of course, I had enough ETH to buy right in this range. So when you have enough ETH to buy at a range, you're always worried that on any upward movement, you're going to get priced out and you're going to miss out, right? And I'm not maybe actually I no I didn't buy that far back. It was oh wait a second I did. I bought right at 3 ETH, so less of a downward trend. And I was looking at support in the kind of this 3 ETH range. I bought right in this kind of upward movement back up here. And again, I bought in a scenario where I was worried about getting outpriced uh, and not being able to catch a move back up from this prior trend, and I bought too early, right? On seeing this downtrend, and then all the way along here, as you see this trend go down, uh, other than looking at longer term support, if it doesn't hold that, then you're just watching, and you can wait. And I mean, ultimately with NFTs, tomorrow's price is going to be lower than today's price, and it's a factor of the fact that all it takes is one person to want to sell. And for whatever reason, psychology says that they need to be the lowest price on the floor. If they're not, and someone else goes lower, they got to go lower. They got to go lower. And right, and it's just this pull down of a few that really changes it pretty significantly. But it's going to provide that value. But it also creates a dynamic of a very thin floor. And there's a really good tweet here from NFT Stats just recently here in the last hour. So percentage of NFTs which haven't sold in 2024. And if you look across the board, it's like it's such a small percentage of each collection that is actively churning. And quite often they're actively churning within Blur and Blur bid dumps, acquisitions, dumps, acquisitions. And of course, someone that gets a Blur bid one because they're trying to uh, farming points by bidding, then they're bidding close to the floor, and they don't want to win because you're not rewarded by buying the NFT. You're rewarded by placing your bid and farming close to that floor. You win that NFT, you're no longer earning any points. You want to sell, so you're either dumping back into a bid within 30 minutes or you're listing at floor to try and sell it as quick as possible so you can get back in and bid some more. But it creates this like perpetual cycle of downward pressure with just a small percentage of NFTs. But eventually, some of these farmers accumulate pretty large positions. Hanwei recently, and maybe a separate Blur farmer, it's a different wallet, but they've accumulated these large positions, and eventually get to a point where they're just like, okay, I'm dumping them all, which can create a temporary drop in floor. Maybe they reaccumulate, but there's this like pressure to move in and out, so it makes things a lot more volatile. So as you look across here, most collections have held uh, pretty firm from long-term holders. Some that may never trade because they're in wallets that they don't use, or maybe they're no longer super active in the space. Some that just have bought and held because the conviction is there within the collection. So it's really quite interesting to look at that. Even though you look at where floor prices are and where it's at, um, it's a matter of waiting out that trend, but also the fact that, and I think that's where some of that panic comes in is say there's 5 to 10 NFTs that are really pulling that floor price down and not a lot of repricement has happened. What'll occur in that case is that, all it takes is a handful of buys and your floor is right back up, right? So it makes watching for that um, change in price a little bit more antsy, so to speak. But watch that trend, right? I'm just trying to think of what collection might be a good example of that. So like Sappy Seals is 10 sales to go from 0.88 up to 0.95. It's not bad. I mean, it's a little bit thicker, but you can see instances where it's like 5 sales and the floor price will move by 10+%. And that's all it takes. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? I'm looking forward to Thursday space. I think that's going to be a nice recap on what's going on in the week, macro, etc. Um, you know, it's an interesting week here overall across the board for crypto and NFTs. So it's a lot of wait and see. Uh, uh, Again, crypto's really driving the narrative across the board. Um, what happens here with Bitcoin? You know, in past cycles, once all time high has been broken, and we can really say that all time high was broken. I don't even know if you would officially say it's broken. I mean, yesterday technically you closed an all time high, but just barely above all time high. If today closes above with any significance above all time high, then what's happened in the last bit is a within 18 days, uh, Bitcoin has doubled. Now, I think it would be way too much to expect that to happen on this case. Going from 70K to 140K in 3 weeks is just I don't think is remotely a possibility. But that's the kind of behavior that has happened once Bitcoin has broken previous levels. So we could be in for a bit more of a upward swing, um, but you know it'd be nice to see it range, to be honest, before we move further, at least in the NFT world. 10K TF reveal. I think that's a big one, a fun one. I've seen some. I don't know if those were sneak peeks at all. Um, some pretty wild art that I seen prior. That will be a fun one. Reveals are always a lot of fun. So let's see if we can pull that up. Wow. So they've shared a bunch of different legendaries. Always interesting when legendaries or high like top end NFTs are shared on pre reveals, but you don't see what that base of the collection looks like. Um, I would expect something to be pretty good across the board for 10K TF, Yuga, etc. And that these megas aren't necessarily all of the reveal. Super busy, but they are legendaries, so that's fine. I don't expect that the regular ones look like that, and they haven't really provided any sneak peek that I can see, unless this is. I guess this would be it. So a lot of variety, which is pretty cool to see, actually. It'll be fun. It'll be fun to look through. It has been a bit of time since we've had a bit of a hyped up reveal, and those are always the most fun on the timeline, is to go through and check them out and to see people FUD or enjoy the art and what to expect. There will be a post reveal dip and likely buying opportunity. So it could be a great opportunity to get into a Yuga asset at a lower price, although the Yuga ecosystem in general is one that I think is more of a watch and see at the moment, as things kind of sort out. So that's most of my hour. I will pause and see if there are more questions, thoughts. Otherwise, I will post up the video in a bit, and then yeah, we'll continue going as the week goes on. I will, as I've promised several times already, but get a mint update out there, upcoming mints, and make a post about that. And then we'll be watching things as they change within the market as soon as it happens. So Killer Bears bridge and migration goes. Yeah, is that that's full collection now at this point, or is it still just the kilobits? I do think it's generally speaking a pretty smart move for for them as a collection specifically, just given the fact that um, they have a lot more going on with dynamic traits and gaming, et cetera, like that, where you want to reduce the gas fees. So, and Solana as it stands is I think established itself as a uh, uh, major chain in the NFT space. And last week I showed how you can take the Magic Eden table here and sort it by Bitcoin and look at it on a kind of a 10-minute horizon. You can obviously do that as well on ETH and see the activity that's going on there. Always a good way to get a barometer of what's kind of popping off at a given time. 10-minute, 1 hour look at it. I definitely look at it often on the Bitcoin side of things to see if there's any new collections that look interesting. Um, and then the other site that I think is of really good value is dgens.finance, a really nice aggregator of all three major chains. So being able to look at them, also done in USD value as well. And then they have some uh, marketplace uh, parts in there as well. Although this doesn't do it by all chains, whereas you'd have to go to somewhere like there's a couple different sites that aggregate it up for all sites, but it's a really effective way to see the market in whole. But yeah, that is it. I appreciate everyone for showing up. Again, open to questions, thoughts, comments on what we cover and what we do. But really enjoy getting to do these sessions on Monday. Thoroughly enjoy our Thursday spaces. I think those have been really helpful and important for the space. So we'll continue to be excited for those. And then, yeah, if there's anything else that you want to see NFT wise, more specifically, don't hesitate to shoot me a DM as I'm open to that. So thanks much, everyone. We'll catch you again at the very least next Monday. Uh, hopefully Thursday as well, and go from there. Bye, everyone.